Learning how to pitch or do a proper presentation can make the difference between closing a deal and walking away with zero. So in this video, I'm gonna show you my best strategies to craft and execute the perfect pitch for you to close more deals. Now I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor for this video, pitch.com, which is an AI-powered presentation software that enables any team to quickly create sleek slide decks in real time. But more on that later, and let's get into the video. Now, the first tip that I have for you when it comes to nailing your presentations is knowing your customers. Now, this is something that most people overlook, right? Because as salespeople, business development people, we want to pitch, because we believe that the more eyes we get in front of, the more people we talk to, the more deals we can close. Now, this is true, but if you want to increase your chances of winning a pitch, you got to know your customer, right? And it's really funny because people know me as a sales trainer. So when they meet me in person, they're like, hey, Patrick, sell me this pen, right? Like they want me to do like a show for them on how to sell. But the reality is, if they don't need a pen, they're not in the market for a pen, there's no reason for me to sell them a pen. So that question itself is flawed right there, right? So the key here is to understand whether or not your customer needs a pen, and that pen, that is essentially what you're selling, right? So you have to understand who is your customer, what pains do they have, how have they tried to solve those pains on their own, and then why did it work, right? And then who else have they tried before? So these are all things that you need to know before the pitch. A lot of times before your pitch, you're talking to your customer, doing a discovery call, qualification call, some kind of conversation before you pitch, right? There's no situation in B2B sales where you're just straight up pitching, because you're literally like, why would anybody want to listen to you, right? You need to ask questions first, understand what they want, and then deliver a presentation that targets their pain points and shows that your solution actually solves for that. And it's these nuances, of understanding your customers that's going to make a whole lot of difference, right? Because when that customer or potential customer walks away from the pitch and they go back to their business partners to think whether or not they want to work with you, they're going to say, wow, that guy Patrick really understood my problems. I think we should go with him. That's going to make or break the difference between you closing the deal. Now, the next tip I have for you is you want to tailor your pitch for your customer. Now, I recently did a pitch where I was pitching a number of different companies on the similar project or business idea, right? What I did was I created a slide deck that was really sleek, really cool. For the most part, I knew my ideal customer had very similar problems. However, I knew that there were also nuances for each of these customers. So each presentation that I prepared, 90% the same, they all have the same problems, but there's that 10% difference. So what is that difference? So some companies that I reached out to, they had a really big focus in targeting a certain demographic, right? Let's call it the gaming demographic. So at certain slides, I would change certain text to be like, hey, we know that one of your biggest challenges is breaking into the gaming market. Here's how we are going to help. But when I go to, let's say, prospect number 2, I know that they are more into collectibles, right? Toys and figurines. So instead of, say, gaming, I would switch it to, I know that you're really interested in hitting the figurines market, the toys market. So here's how we're going to solve your problem, right? So at the end of the day, I'm selling a marketing solution, but my target demographic is going to be slightly different depending on who I'm talking to. And that is that nuance that really makes or break the difference between a pitch. You don't want to send the same thing to everyone, right? That's like cold emailing everyone without adjusting anything. You want to make your pitch slightly nuanced for them so that they always feel like, wow, this presentation was built for me. Patrick is the person that should be servicing me in my business, not anybody else. And when you're able to do that and convey that feeling, your chances of actually converting this potential customer into a client is much higher. Any text or any ideas or bullet points that don't pertain to your potential client, just take it out. You don't need to talk about things that they don't care about. For me, what I like to do is I look at what their problems are, how do I solve their problems, and what is the benefit of that, and why I'm better than everybody else, and some case studies, and that's it, right? I don't talk about anything the client does not care about. I don't give them any new information. I just talk about the problems that they already have and show them how I can solve it. And now real quick, I want to talk about our sponsor, pitch.com. Pitch.com recently came out with Pitch 2.0, which is kind of like a new standard for teams to create and deliver presentations. They actually use artificial intelligence to help you create your presentation. So you could say sales pitch for my SaaS product or create a slide deck for my marketing agency, right? So this AI actually puts together the whole thing and gives you a template and all that very quickly. So I've actually used this myself and I played around with some examples and you can see how Pitch puts it together really easily. I did one where I was like crypto marketing agency and then I was able to get this slide deck. Essentially, it covers the most of the basics, right? Like case study, service offer, target audience. And you obviously can go into it, change the text and images to fit your needs. You can also change the color so that it can fit your branding as well. So it's a very easy tool to use, especially because it's using AI. So here you can start your presentations from scratch, or use their templates, or use AI to help create a template for you. And it's a very easy place for you to manage all your presentations and for your team to see where everything is at as well. So if you want to learn more about pitch.com and try it out for yourself, we got a link in the description, so make sure to check that out. Now, getting back into creating the perfect presentation, the next tip I have for you is you want to tell stories. Most of the sales pitch that I have seen, people typically have like a bullet points of like, this is what we're going to do. Here's the features and benefits, all these things that nobody cares, right? It's actually very boring. What you want to do instead is you want to tell stories, especially when it comes to case studies. These are going to be the most powerful, right? So when I was doing a lot of marketing consulting, essentially what I would do is once I had some success from previous clients, all I would have to do is say, hey, well, I had this other client that was similar to you. They had this problem, which is also the problem that you have right now. And here's what they tried to do by themselves, and they couldn't figure it out. So after they met me, I made some recommendations on what they should do. And then after working with me for 1 or 2 months, here are the results they have, and they just blew it out of the water, right? And so essentially by telling that story, it's a very easy way for a customer or potential customer to understand what it is you do, what problems you solve, what value you have. And it also creates this sense of security, or it's not necessarily a guarantee, but like it de-risks them, right? Because if they're working with you, how do they know that you can actually do the job? Well, they don't know, right? But if you have case studies and these case studies are highly relevant to their situation, then they're much more likely to say yes to buying your solution. So tell stories, especially customer success. That's going to be your most powerful driver when it comes to generating more sales or closing the deal. Now, the final tip I have for you is how do you actually close the pitch? Now, essentially, when you go through all your bullet points, you show how you solve the problems. In the end, what I like to do is I like to go into a Q&A, right? You have a little closer, this is how we're gonna help, everybody claps, whatever, right? And then you say, okay, well, now we're gonna open up to Q&A. Does anyone have any questions on the things that we have, the software we have, whatever the case is? And people are gonna ask questions, which are essentially objections to why maybe somebody will buy. Once you handle those objections one by one, and you get them all done, what I typically like to say is, hey, now that we cover all the questions, is there anything else you need to say before moving forward? And from there, what somebody will say is, oh yeah, actually, I had one question about integration or how it's going to work with this. Do you have any guarantees? Which are more objections, right? So the whole point of a pitch is to kind of convey your value and then handle all objections. Once there are no objections and there's no reason for why somebody should not buy from you, then they are going to buy. So you handle those objections that pop up, and then you ask again. Now that we covered all those questions that you had, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? Now, once they have no more questions and no more objections, the next step is this. They're going to say, oh, that's pretty much all the questions for me. You say, great. Typically for you guys, what's the next step for you to actually get this deal done on your side, right? And then they will say, oh, we got to go to procurement. I got to go to this person, get approval, and then, then we can do the deal. Then all you have to do is ask the question. It's like, okay, well, when will that happen? When do you think you'll get back to me on that? Or when do you think we get the contract signed, right? Essentially, you're laying a plan that both sides are aware of, a step by step on exactly what is supposed to happen, right? Because if you're someone that is offering real value, you don't want to waste your time, you don't want to waste their time, and both people need to be on the same page. Once there's that checklist, of like, go to this guy, go to this guy, go to this guy, get the approval, send the contract done, all you have to do is make sure everything is on schedule and always ask for when it will be done. So there's some kind of urgency, some sense of time to make sure that no one is messing around. And so that's pretty much how I like to close my presentations, and those are my tips overall for presentations. So if you did enjoy this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.